All right, welcome back. I am here. I'm Rudy Knapp, and this is Legacy Build Your Kingdom. I am happy to say that I am at a 1 year mark tomorrow for starting this podcast. It's a huge accomplishment for me. I thought never in the world did I ever think that I would do a podcast. Never did I think that I would get comfortable enough to continue to do this. Again, it's not about what we think at the moment, it's about actually doing. So there are actions that take place. And so, one thing that I preach on this podcast is to step outside your comfort zone and take a chance, try something new. I was pushed early on to try this. I do a lot of preaching and life lessons, discussions. And when this whole thing started, I got into this idea of, you know what? Let me just give it a shot. Let me try it. Let me see how this goes and continue to build on from there. Once I got rolling, I would happy to say that there is 40 episodes that I have completed. This is episode number 41. That's a huge feat for me. And then it's also this idea that I'm pretty consistent. I wanted to do one a week. I didn't quite get to one a week, but I am going to tell you that 40 episodes is a lot of work. It's a lot of discussion. It's a lot of sacrifice with some time and actually putting in some effort to it. So for me, I'm going to take on and cheer myself on where I think that it's something that I accomplished, and I'm going to continue to grow from this. I think that we all have to take those moments and pat ourselves on the back a little bit and say, you know what, you did something that's different than what you expected. And for me, this led to many other things that are going on in my life. So it's really great because it helps with recognizing who I am. And so I evolve as a person. Not only am I trying to build my kingdom, I'm also trying to build those around me. And so I can tell, in just conversations and with friends and then with my own self, the person I have become, the real reflection, the real looking in the mirror is something that I'll talk about later, is a topic that I talk about on this podcast. And it's really helps me to grow as a person. It also helps me to really see an insightful way to look at life and how valuable life is. And it's another thing that, connects me to God. So for me, this has grown into a life coaching business. It's now evolving into even a bigger part of my business. It's now even expanding even further. And once I get all that together, then I'll announce all those things. But as I continue to grow, as I continue to get better, as I continue to push myself to become more, I really hope people out there that are listening, or people that, you know, really want to do better for themselves, really take some insight from this, whether it's a little bit, whether it's a lot, whether it's a tiny bit, I don't care. But if you take something from it, what that's doing is that's telling me that, your perspective might change a little bit by my influence, which also gives me an intrinsic value that says, hey, maybe I'm helping some people. Or maybe you listen to mine and you find a way to create your own perspective, and you know what, that helps you as well. So when I look at this, I love to listen to feedback. I mean, anybody that's listening to, please shoot me a text, tell me some feedback. I'd love for it to be through text, so I have immediate, tell me what you think. And I'm going to have an open mind, because I'm preaching that. It's how I want to be. I want to have an open mind to take some perspective, whether it's a good thing, whether it's something you related to, whether it's something that you disagree with, whether it's something that you want to hear more about. I would love to hear some feedback. I get that from several people, usually every week. I really enjoy that. I really like listening to how other people perceive or actually relate to what I'm talking about on these podcasts. So I want to get right into it. This is my 41st episode. This is 1 year in review. So that's what I'm going to call it, 1 year in review. I'm going to go through each episode and give you a little bit about what each episode's about. So if you missed a lot of episodes and you're listening to this one, hey, maybe you'll take a little bit of insight on what episode it is, and you can go back and find it. I'm sorry, I am very unorganized. I should go back and organize. I probably will, with labeling 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and go all the way up to 40. When I first started this, I had a different mindset, and then I changed it. I did like some quick ones, and then I did some that I miscounted, and then I labeled them wrong. So some of this is just a growing process for me. So as I go through, I'm going to go through each episode. I'm going to give you a brief understanding of what it's about. I'm not going to be able to tell you everything that's said in those episodes. I mean, some of these are 30, 40 minutes long. Some of these are very, very deep. So I will give you a brief understanding of each one. Hopefully, you take something from this. Maybe it's a reminder. Maybe it's something that you listened to already, or maybe you want to go back and listen to, or you pinpoint an episode that relates to you and say, hey, I want to go find that episode. I would love for that to happen. So I'm going to do a quick, well, I don't know if it's quick, but a review of all 40 episodes. So bear with me here. All right. So the first episode, I started off, I was introducing, building a kingdom, this whole legacy building a kingdom concept. This whole reason I did this podcast and then led to my life coaching business. But this entire podcast and my idea of building this kingdom all comes down to that word legacy. Legacy to me is, who do you represent? What is your purpose? What kind of person are you? How will you be remembered? And what does your kingdom look like? What does it represent? Who and what is part of your kingdom? So when you start looking at this concept of legacy, I talked a little bit about in that first podcast about, like, I was really confused on this idea of legacy. Like, you had to be some amazing person, but realistically, we all have our own legacy. So as we look at legacy and we say, hey, this is what I am, this is my purpose, these are my core values, these are things that I'm going to get into, talk about, but this is what my kingdom represents. And these are the people involved. These are my kids. These are my people. This is my job. This is where I spend my time. These are the things that come into play when you're talking about your kingdom, and how can you build that part of you up, your kingdom. So once you build your kingdom and you start building your kingdom and you're getting better every day and you're growing and you're pushing yourself to become something great, guess what? The people around you, they follow suit. They get better. They see it. You model it. They want to be part of it. That's the reason they're part of your kingdom. And those people that are not, those haters, those people that you don't like, you eliminate them from your kingdom. They're no part of your kingdom. And that is an important aspect here. So why did I do this? Well, I did this whole thing because of my own kids. I started this whole thing to give back my words to my kids. I really wanted them to say, hey, someday, maybe they don't want to listen to it now. Like, they probably don't, 14-year-old kids. They don't want to listen to me, but I would give anything to listen to my mom's words. And I would give anything to listen to some people that were important in my life, their words. I want my kids to hear them all the time. They hear my words. We have conversation all the time. But I want them to have these important life lessons, these important things that I believe in for the rest of life. It's recorded. It's for the rest of life. So if I'm not here, or if there's something you're missing, or whatever the case is, they can always go back to this and check it out. So this podcast was created for Ben and Sophie, but it evolved and it became part of my kingdom, and it became part of my friends. It became part of my people. It became part of anybody that wanted to get better. And now part of that extends to my life coaching business, and maybe even people that, work under me that, are part of this concept of wanting to get better, and I'm helping, and I'm there to guide them, and maybe they listen to this as well. So this is the whole reason. Episode 1, really shaky on episode 1. It was the first time I ever did a podcast, so bear with that one. But it is an explanation of why we're here, right? Number 2, episode 2, empowerment. This is all about controlling your thinking, this positive self-talk about yourself, changing your program, and using your creativity. Choose this light and hope in every circumstance. So what do I mean by, like, change your program? Well, we talk a little bit in that episode about how you are programmed and your life is programmed in your brain from the time you're born till you're 7, that you're kind of programmed to follow what other people believe and what other people have. And that's usually your parents, right? And the people around you. And so we always default back to this. So our brains actually default back to this concept of, this is the way we're supposed to do things. So instead of us doing that, why don't we support creativity early on with our kids? Why don't we support the idea of them thinking, them problem solving, them doing things on their own? So I talk a lot about that in this, but empowerment is to take control of your life, right? To go back and control that you can change anything you want in your life from one day to the next. And that you have this ability to build your kingdom and those people around you. Maybe you went through hard times, but you have the ability to change who you are. This is something that I hope resonates with specific people in my life, that make sure they understand this idea of you are empowering yourself to become a better person and better for other people around you. Episode 3, I get into this 90-10% rule, or jump right into this concept. Some people don't know what that means, but if you actually read Atomic Habits, one of the things they talk about is the 1% negativity versus the 99% positive. Some people ruin 99% positive of things with a 1% negative. And that's hurtful to think about, You have 99% positive, maybe that you enjoy in somebody, and then the 1% ruins all of that relationship. I call it 90-10%. And the reason I say that is because I believe that there's a little bit more of, instead of 1% negative, I think people, that are different than other people might find about 10% in most relationships. Usually you get in a relationship because you have 90% of what you want in that relationship. You have 90% of that person that's amazing, that you love about them. And there's 10% that maybe you would change something, or maybe you're annoyed by something. Maybe it's how they brush their teeth and the marks get all over the mirror. I don't know. Whatever the case is, you find 10% that, maybe you would change about that person. But just remember, you can't have perfect. And remember, those people out there are who they are. And so those 10%, that should be something that is understood and being accepted. The 90% is what guides you in that relationship to be in that relationship. And the problem becomes is this: people go out there and they seek that other 10%. Well, he's not paying attention, or he doesn't do this like I want him to do, or she doesn't do. So they go and seek other people and they ruin what they had in front of them. They had 90% of what they really want and they throw it away for a measly 10%. They might find that 10%, but guess what? That 10% doesn't have the other 90%. So that's, sometimes people cheat and do that for a reason. The other part of that is, what does this 10% represent? Now, I believe that you should be able to accept those 10%, but you generally love 90% of your partner, but the 10% you aren't fond of can, really be something that you have to look deep into. So if it's something minor, like I just mentioned, well, what happens when it's your non-negotiables? What happens when that 10% becomes the idea of something that is a boundary that they can't withhold? The only time the 10% should affect you is if your partner's 10% is part of your non-negotiables or your boundaries. If that's the case, then that person's not for you. And that's really difficult, because you may love 90% of them, but that 10%, that's non-negotiable. Those are things that can't happen. Maybe they can't handle. I told you in this podcast many times, I have people that couldn't handle the fact that I have a great co-parenting relationship with my ex-wife. That's a non-negotiable for me. You're out if you can't handle it. And because of that, I lost relationships. So as you move on, I move on to episode 4. This is a big one: core values. Core values are the guiding influences in your life. What are your core values? Do you value respect, hard work, fairness, being punctual, friendship, family? What drives who you are? What defines you as a person? There are exercises for you to break down the most important core values you have, as we may have a ton. We might have many. And I talk about this in this podcast. You can go and refer to that podcast to find out some of these exercises. But in this podcast, what's really awesome about this core value is not only do I identify mine, not only do I talk about how you can identify yours and all the exercises, I get to have my son on the podcast. And so that was really special for me. For him to agree to come on and be a co-host is the only time I've had a co-host so far. I plan on adding on maybe in this next year, but Ben came on and he was amazing, and he got a chance to talk, a little bit, and it was amazing to see his core values and how he matches what my core values are. And just go listen. I think it's a great way to look at how my son and I have a relationship together, but also core values is what guides us. And obviously I'm implementing my core values onto my own kids. So it's a great one. I really hope my daughter would get on one point. Right now she's not on board, but if she gets on board, that'd be really, as soon as she gets on board, I'll do a podcast with her. So moving on to episode 5, leads to faith. Let faith guide your life to becoming a better kingdom. Forgive, have godly sorrow, and repent. Live how God intended you to live. So this concept of faith and how important faith is into guiding our lives, not only our core values, but also our faith and how we live our life. You need to better your kingdom each and every day. And a lot of that is guided by your purpose, and your purpose comes from your faith, God, what you believe in. Episode 6, confidence and self-worth. When you work on all 5 pillars of life, like I talk about in my life coaching business, you find yourself learning and becoming confident in who you are. Building a self-worth, being confident in what you represent, your core values, what you stand for, will always lead you to an improvement in your own kingdom. Live life with confidence that you can do whatever you want. You can have a better life. And when you do, you magnify the rest of your kingdom. I believe confidence is one of the most important attributes to becoming successful. In my life coaching business, it's the first thing that I work on in most cases. One thing that we talk about is how you represent yourself. And if you walk into a room, you should be confident in who you are. I know for myself, and speaking for who I am, a part of this comes back to what I have built for my own kingdom. Number one, I built my mental capacity on how I can look at my own self and how I know my self worth, right? How I know that if I am worthy of, I can walk with a confidence. I know that that led me to my physical health and how I've changed physically over the last 6 years to be who I want to be. And so when I walk in the room, as somebody gave me a compliment once, I have a presence. And that doesn't have to do with just me being a big guy and having muscles and certain things. It has to do with the idea of I know who I am and I speak with a confidence because I know that I belong there. And so when we walk in a room and we're worried about what other people think and what we look like, and we're worried about not understanding or not knowing, we talk a lot about like, what room are you in? Are you in a room where you're learning from other people and you're providing for other people? Or are you in a room where you can't provide anything, or you're the most important person in that room, the smartest person in that room, and then you can't learn from anyone? If you're in that room, you're in the wrong rooms. So again, be in the right rooms, walk with confidence. I want all of the people that I work with in my life coaching business, fitness, all of those things to walk with a confidence. I don't care if you're not where you truly want to be yet. It's a process. But understand that you walk and you speak with a confidence. You know who you are. You know what you represent. You know your core values. You know the person that you are. And if you don't, you need to find it. And again, reach out to me. Let's talk life coaching. I'm telling you right now, that is what people don't understand about life coaching. It's 100% what they don't get. Oh, that's just something. No, it's not. It's a true change in who you are. It's a true change into building your kingdom and understanding that you have to be confident in who you are. I don't care if you're 300 pounds. I don't care if you never graduated high school. You can be confident in who you are and you can build yourself up. And when you get to that point of understanding, no matter what level you're at, that this isn't about your knowledge, this isn't about a college degree, this isn't about the fact that I have a master's degree. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with who I am as a person and how I interact with other people and how I'm knowledgeable enough with my intelligence that's an emotional intelligence that will help me throughout my entire life. So I say this, passionately, because confidence and self-worth, it's everything. Uh, it's something that can't be measured, but only from yourself. That's why no one else gets to judge your worth. They can do it all they want, but they don't matter. Only you matter. Only how you think of yourself matters. How you talk about yourself matters. So that confidence that you have in yourself is only measured by you. Episode 7, that leads me to gratitude, appreciation, and time. Without these important virtues, we find ourselves unfulfilled, and honestly, it's almost impossible to find happiness. Replace expectations with gratitude, even in the worst situations. That's something Tony Robbins always preaches. Replace expectations with gratitude. So think about that concept. If I'm not expecting from people, and I show how grateful I am. Let's just say you're in a bad relationship with somebody. Well, maybe I'm grateful for you teaching me that this isn't how friendship is. And maybe instead of having expectations for certain people that they should meet for you, you're now just grateful for their presence. So the idea becomes that you don't get let down. When you have high expectations, you continuously have expectations. We are going to have expectations from some things. But when we continuously add on these expectations, we're going to be let down. And we don't want that. Appreciate life and God and find yourself valuing intrinsic things like love, small acts of kindness, and time over material things. Remember, time is the greatest value we'll ever have to offer or receive. Time is the greatest value you will have to offer to somebody or to receive from somebody. We can't get it back. Who we choose to give it to is one of the most important daily decisions we will ever make. Daily decisions. How you spend your time and with who. We are not immortal, so choose wisely. The concept is this. I choose to spend my time watching my kids and going to their sporting events so that I can cheer them on. That isn't a waste of time to me. That is me supporting the people I love. I choose to spend my time with my person so that we can experience things. I choose to spend my time with my family because they're important to me. I choose to spend my time with my friends because my friends are somebody that makes me happy and they value me. Those are things that you have to look at. Time, the most important virtue. We're going to talk about that later on because there's another episode on time. Episode 8, speaking of time, next podcast that I had was on celebration of life. Dedicated to my brother who passed at a young age of 16. Again, not a lot of time. Very hurtful when you lose somebody at a young age. But here's the thing, we celebrate those people instead of mourning the life that we have lost. Yes, we're going to go through a mourning period. We understand that, but we celebrate those people. We take what they gave us as gifts. My brother Rob gave me a concept that don't live your life where it's so serious. So make sure you laugh and find your happiness. He gave me this. These are gifts that he gave me by understanding who he was, by watching who he was, and going through that process of understanding, hey, even though he was here for a short period of time, I learned from him. He also gave me the reason I found God. My life was led to the church. Being in 6th grade, watching your brother pass away, my life was led to church, in junior high. And every week, showing up to church, finding God, putting my faith into him, praising and appreciating how he loves me and how he has suffered for me. Those are things that I can never regret in life. Losing my brother is awful, one of the worst things that we can go through. But understanding this concept of what I gained from it, that's a huge way for me to celebrate my brother by living my life. Going on to episode 9, honoring Mother's Day, mothers on Mother's Day. The idea of how mothers are a guiding force in the empathy of this world. How without the love and care, we are lost as children. Missing my mom's presence right now and always, sometimes we lose sight of just how important mothers are in our own path in life. I think my ex-wife and how vital she was to the upbringing of my children and how she still is. They're extremely lucky to have a great mom. And to my own mom, she sacrificed so much for and to all the other moms out there that I know personally that are truly amazing moms that I've talked to certain people and I've had those conversations with, and they know exactly who they are. Truly great moms that will put their kids before anything, that will also understand the idea that without them, their kids are lost, and they should be honored every single day by their children. They should be honored for the sacrifices that they make. Moms run this world. We are truly lucky to have them. Episode 10, be humble. Like I said, live your life with confidence, but take a humble approach to allow for growth and respect from all the others in your kingdom. Humility leads to growth and a huge learning lesson and step in the process of life. And always remember, God's presence will always humble you. Honesty with yourself will always humble you. And life will begin to grow in a positive direction if your approach includes being humble. Think about that. Once you are humble, all you can do is move forward and move up. Once you understand that there is a greater presence out there, once you understand that God has done the ultimate for us, that Jesus has died for us, once you understand that you are not top, you take that humble approach in every aspect, not just with God, but also in your relationships, also with what people provide for you in your family and in your people. Understand being humble is a huge virtue. You should be appreciative. You should be humble in what is actually done for you. Episode 11, what is your purpose? I keep preaching this nonstop every episode. What is your purpose? In this episode, I discuss how important it is to find your purpose and how we can go about finding it. Purpose is when your gift in life meets your passion and your values. God will guide you if you listen. I truly believe that. God will guide you in ways in which it's not going to come directly down from God, and He's not going to hand you a note, and He's not going to speak to you directly, but He's indirectly speaking to you every single day of life. He's putting this path in front of you, and you have the choice to make. What is your purpose? Your purpose isn't just your profession. Please tell me that you don't believe that. I'm a teacher, and I don't think my purpose is being a teacher. I think my purpose is helping people. And that is part of being a teacher. That's also part of being a life coach. It's also part of being a coach in sports. It's also part of being a fitness coach. It's also part of being a good friend. It's also part of being a great partner. It's also part of building my kingdom up. So when we start talking about what is your purpose, you have to find that. And if you're lost, reach out to me. Let's do it together. Let's find it. Because I have exercises. We have things that we can do. We have things in life coaching that will help us lead us to where we want to be. And once you find that purpose, happiness is right around that corner, because that is the goal, to live a happy life. Episode 12, Purpose Leads to Happiness. There it is. In episode 12, I discussed the importance of living your life. It's okay to live, enjoy things you worked for. God always says, do not worry. So let go of the worries and focus on what you have control over. I discussed the 3 essentials to happiness, how your physical health leads you to your mental health, and the 10 keys to living in a happier life. If you want more from that happiness, please go back to episode 12. Please look for happiness. If it's not listed as episode 12, please go back and look for happiness. Understand this is what we want. This is our goal, right? Find our purpose, find our happiness. Episode 13, Shifting Gears, I discussed the education system failure. This in-depth look at misconceptions of the education system, I dive into the true failures of why students are failing in the school system as a whole. Like I just said, I'm a teacher, so I'm telling you firsthand for 20-something years of teaching how I can tell you in different education systems, this is the same thing that's happening all across the world. It's failing. I explained that the Common Core hate, as I call it. Because everybody, I hate Common Core. I don't understand Common Core. I hate Common Core. Every parent, I hate it. And how we should appreciate this new math that everybody hates. I hate new math. I hate it. It's so hard. I don't understand why they make my kids do this. We have to sit up and do homework all day long. I hate this. And I explain the reason why we have Common Core and why it's actually a good thing for your kids. I know people hate it. I'm not saying I love the concept of some of it. I'm saying this idea is that it's better than the system we had in place. It's also, this new math is a better approach to your kids learning and understanding in long term. I know right now in front of you, well, they're making them do this and change this and do 5 different steps when all you had to do was this, the way I was taught. Stop. Think outside the box. Understand what's actually happening. And so I explain how you're getting 5 different strategies, and your kids can choose from one of the strategies, and they can see that you're decomposing numbers and you're composing numbers and you're putting them back together and you're understanding numbers and you're understanding how to make connections and patterns to other things in life, all because of this new math. And then when you look at us, guess what? You better memorize your facts, and you better know every step on how to do adding and subtracting and multiplying and dividing, which is actually not math. That's called computation. Math is actually problem solving. So I can go into that all day long because I'm a teacher, but please understand a couple things. Number one, it's not the worst thing for you. It's the best thing for your kids in the long run. So think about that. I also follow this up with another, school system failure discussion. I do episode 14 is another one. So I have back-to-back 13 and 14. I discuss how the school system has blame. All stakeholders of the student are to blame. That means of the student, of the school, all stakeholders are to blame. That includes politicians and school boards and administration of the school, the teachers, the parents, and the students. And I kind of get in on the parents a little bit because the parents are a big part of the failure of the system. My kids do no wrong. My kids should have an A. My kids don't understand. Behavior comes back to the parents. And I'm just going to be blunt with you. It is our faults as parents. I am a parent as well. It is our faults as parents to go back and say, hey, you know what? We allow our kids to act a certain way and think that our kids are angels, and they're not. And so I do a dive into what makes a good student and how society and behaviors affect student growth is really, really an important concept. Sacrifice equals discipline. Needs consistency, leads to growth, and it leads to success. So this concept here is we have to start looking at what is our role as parents and how can we support and we can get into those concepts of how we can support the school and our kids' education. Episode 15, Happy Father's Day. Speaking of sacrifice, those men out there that are good fathers, they understand how important it is to have sacrifice, or how sacrifice is so important in their lives. Men have a different role than women, and men also, they have to provide structure and balance from the mother's role, and then they have to sacrifice for their children, and they should be honored. Good men, good fathers should be honored. Shout out to my dad, my uncles, my cousins, my friends, my coaches, and all the influential men that have modeled and used integrity when taking care of their responsibilities. I'm proud of you. Shout out to you. There's some great men that have been part of my life, and probably leads me, to where I am today. And I choke up having that conversation because not only are mothers the foundation of making us good people, but good men still exist in this day. And so we have these conversations because I think a lot of people think men, avoid their responsibility. And there's a lot of that garbage out there. And there's a lot of awful people. But man, I am telling you, I have been surrounded by some good men who have shown the way. And then also, hopefully, I am showing the way towards other people, because that is the foundation of life right there. Episode 16. In this next episode, I discuss what transparency is, especially in relationships. It is different than honesty. Understanding this can make a relationship strong and complete. But without transparency, relationships will eventually crumble with lack of trust. I went out with some friends for dinner. That's a lot different than I am going out to dinner with friends. My ex-girlfriend from college is going to be there, and I will be home by 9. You are more than welcome to call if it makes you feel more comfortable. There's two different statements there. And the first statement is honesty. Well, that was honesty. I was honestly going out with my friends. But what about transparency? That second statement was more transparent. It told you exactly what you wanted to hear and what you needed to hear. I'm sorry, but I know that you wanted to know if that ex-girlfriend was going to be there, because if I didn't tell you, I wasn't being very transparent. Episode 18, parenting. I jump into this. Episode 17, life coaching. So I get into promoting my business in this life coaching. I talk about the introduction to the 5 pillars of life, the foundation of building your kingdom. So this life coaching revolves around this whole podcast. And so I believe in 5 pillars in life. The first one being your mental health comes first, which I discuss the power and importance of changing how you think. Your physical enhancement is the second pillar, and that builds confidence and supports your mental change. Spiritual uplift is the third pillar, and that's also finding your purpose, and it's a huge component of life, including God and your life's direction. Career and financial development is a pillar that can be built with a focus, approach, and goals. And the last one, emotional intelligence, allows for relationships in all aspects of life to become improved with direction to purpose of building up yourself and those around you. So there's 5 pillars there. Those 5 pillars are really important to this concept of how do we improve our life and how do we keep it balanced? Because at all times, some of those pillars are crashing. Sometimes our finances are not in order and we need to work on that. Sometimes, our physical health we need to work on. And we should be working on all 5 of these things simultaneously, with a focus on one of them more than the other at times. Sometimes our focus is going to be on our spiritual and our God and relating. So we have to really put this in perspective. Getting to episode 18, I go into this whole 3-part series on parenting. And this one got a little bit rough for some people because there's some truth that you have to actually look at yourself in the mirror a little bit. And we'll get into looking in the mirror in a minute. But parenting number 1, this is where I introduce the importance of incorporating God and faith into our children's lives. I discuss how we can build a personal relationship with God, how to normalize God in everyday life, the power of prayer in a 4-part system, and how to teach your kids to pray. Remember, God never promises us a painless life. He promises life, but it's up to us to live the way He intended and make choices on how our life ends up, happy or not. Episode 19, parenting is hard. Again, number 2, part of this series. This is the second part of the series. And this discusses how society norms and pressures us to to going against our own core values at times. How we can eliminate these pressures. How can we eliminate these pressures? I mean, we talk about how we can eliminate these pressures in this episode. I get in examples of video games, screen time, underage drinking, staying up late. These are all things that we get pressured on as parents. And guess what? We have to stick to our core values. We have to be able to find ways in which we're not going to let society norms or friends get to do this and my kids are crying about it or whatever the case is. We have to stick to our core values because that's what provides us as parents to teach our kids to become better people. I discuss the importance of giving gifts and I give tips for dealing with conflict. And sometimes you're going to have conflict with your kids. And so how we deal with conflict with our kids or with other parents when they want you to act the norm. So there's definitely tips on that. So episode 20 is the last part of the parenting is hard. This is back to school. I give a shout out in this episode to welcome back students back to school. Just happen to fall around that time frame and guide parents on what they can do to support their children with their education. Do not do their homework. Don't ever do their homework for them. Homework is for them to do and for their teacher to see where they go wrong. Support your kids with behavior at home and at school. Behavior falls in your line. It should not come from the teacher. It should not come from anyone else. Behavior should come from you. And the problem is that when they go to school and they act up, now it becomes a problem for for a teacher to have to deal with. That is your responsibility. Teachers have to deal with behavior a lot of times in the education world, and it shuts down and it keeps them from growing or succeeding in growing academically, and you don't want that. I also discussed the idea of why parents should support education, how our brains are an encyclopedia of knowledge, where we need to fill the pages so that we can use them at the right times in life. Support education. Talk to your kids about how education is important for them, to learn new things, to be creative, and then also provide those things, those resources in their brain, this encyclopedia in their brain, so that they can use it in the real world when it comes. I have so many parents and so many people that come up to me and go, well, when am I ever going to use algebra? You use algebra every day of your life. And people have no clue to make that connection because for some reason it's a disconnect for our parents. But these kids with their new math, guess what? They can make that connection. You're doing algebra from the time you walk into school. And the idea is that you have to be able to be supportive on understanding that it doesn't have to be X plus 2 equals 5. I'm never going to use in my life or whatever the case is when you actually are using a form of it in problem solving. Episode 21. In this episode, I tribute an influential program in my life. It's called 75 Hard. I go into detail of how this has changed my entire world. It is something that is life-changing for me. And I will always, always give respect to the man that made it. I always will give respect to the program itself. And then I'll always be proud of myself for the accomplishments that I created from this. How I changed my whole life. It is a mental toughness program that I changed my entire life around. And I'm going to tell you the components of this. So 75 Hard is this program where every day you need to have a strict diet, number one. No cheat days, no alcohols allowed. You need to drink a gallon of water, number two. You need to work out 2 times a day, and they have to be minimum 45-minute workouts, and one has to be outside under the sky, and it doesn't matter what the weather is, but you got to be outside 1 time a day. You also must read 10 pages of a self-help book, number 4. And then number 5, you must take a selfie every single day. Now, those things, if you fail one, you start over, which means you start at day 1 of 75. You got to do 75 straight days. Those don't sound very rough, but you have to be as strict as possible because remember, the goal is to be mentally tough. It is to provide yourself with hard things to do so that you get over hard things in life later when hard things hit us. I also discussed the mental toughness of controlling your own narrative when you're thinking, rejecting the victim mentality that everybody in this world seems to have. Get over, you are not a victim. Doesn't matter what your cards are dealt. You have to be able to live life without that mentality. The 5 key aspects of life I talk about discipline, I talk about growth and letting go. I also, to continuously grow mentally. Like this is a lifelong thing. Embrace therapy. Go to therapy. Everybody thinks there's something wrong with you. I used to think that myself. I had to evolve from that thinking. I go to therapy every single week for me personally. Not that I think I need therapy. It's because I enjoy therapy. It helps me with working on myself. It leads me to having things like a podcast or growing and forming a business and adding on to my business. It helps me with my thinking and my blocks and how I act out in public and how I act in relationships and how I act in certain ways and how I want to better myself in certain things and how I'm doing well in certain things. Go to therapy, promote therapy, embrace it. And then also to build your legacy by approaching mental health first so your kingdom thrives. That's a big one. Real big influence on my life, 75 Hard. All right. Episode 22, the first part of a 5-part series, introduces genuine apologies, a very difficult thing for most of us to do. I give a deep dive into mentally being able to apologize with a purpose, with deep sorrow, causing accountability for yourself without blaming others, and representing my and repenting by fixing what damages you caused. That's a big part of this. I'm sorry is not enough. Asking, what can I do to help with the damage I caused and for you to forgive me for my actions? That's a big statement right there. You should be able to ask that question and actually follow through with that. This is a way to amend relationships and generally apologize. We must teach our kids that true damage or awful behavior cannot be fixed with just, I'm sorry. You must apologize. Deep sorrow within you, within your soul. Understand you are deeply upset by what you have caused to someone else. Taking accountability, repenting and fixing. Repenting is fixing the problem that you caused. Going on to that leads to forgiveness. With a genuine apology, episode 23 talks about forgiveness. We offer forgiveness or we forgive ourselves. This is one of the hardest attributes to attain when you have been hurt, feel pain from someone else. As God wishes, we should give forgiveness even if it isn't deserved. We do this for our own benefit, to release bitterness and resentment and allow for internal peace. If you are a person causing the harm, you should follow the 4 R's: responsibility, remorse, restoration, and renewal, in order to genuinely apologize and seek forgiveness. This will help the person you harmed with forgiving you. Godly sorrow, repent. Remember those. Episode 24, I get into micro versus macro thinking, what I always kind of refer back to. A huge part of finding your happiness and making your life purposeful is micro thinking versus macro thinking. Both of them together. There is a balance. Be purposeful on what you do day to day, micro activities, if you will, which should connect and lead to macro thinking or plans for the future. Remove yourself from the torture and mundane daily activities and be sure to allow the big picture goals, macro thinking, to guide you to your purpose. In this episode, you learn the balance of each way of thinking and how important it is to have both in your life. Think about that idea. We have to do daily things, micro. Every day we got to do daily things to get to our goals of our macro. Episode 25, love, a powerful word that guides our lives, right? It is a feeling, a choice. Are there different kinds of love? Family, friendship, romantic, self-love, they're all different. All of these have one thing in common. You can't have love for someone else without this concept of endless effort. Now, I say this many times, this is a guiding component of all relationships. There should never be I did enough. Endless effort leads to love, right? And so when I talk about love, I give a definition. I bleed, you bleed. I hurt, you hurt. You hurt, I hurt. You bleed, I bleed. We are one. We'll talk about that later. Episode 26, before I get into this endless effort, like I just said a minute ago, time is needed to be discussed. Time wraps up the series on internal struggles. So this whole concept of internal struggles here, as we started talking about genuine apologies, then we went to forgiveness, micro versus macro thinking, love, now I'm talking about time. This wraps up this internal struggles of this series by emphasizing the importance of how it's life's most valuable and non-renewable resource. Again, time is life's most valuable and non-renewable resource. I dig into this invaluable cost of the lost time and choosing no regrets. I also discuss how time defines choices, shapes relationships, and fuels accomplishments. A reminder to live life with intention gives us a guide to what life might look like at the end if we waste precious time. Episode 24, back to that endless effort. And, this is a beginning part to a 6-part series on relationships. I get into this whole thing on relationships. I start with endless effort because I believe it's the foundation of any relationship. Where there is endless effort, There is hope and a little of every other part of this acronym circle that I created. We'll get into that in another podcast, but endless effort explains the continuous, persistent, hard work needed in any relationship. We can apply this to mental health, our career, spiritual growth, and God, and finding purpose. And any relationship, whether romantic or not. Important concepts like actions over words, swallowing your pride, mutual investment like a reciprocal endless effort are all thoroughly discussed in this episode. Go back, listen to it. Another one of the best ones I got, endless effort. Really important part to anything you do in your entire life. Keep that in mind. Going back to relationships here, the second foundational key to all relationships, communication. We listen for understanding, we speak for understanding. Without both, it's hard to resolve conflict or find a resolution. Vulnerability, trust, using I statements, and empathy when speaking, talking breaks respectfully, right? Taking breaks respectfully. And then giving respect, showing appreciation, all help with communication. I talk on this episode about the 777 rule in relationships can help create a bond and allow for more intimate romantic relationships. We talk about 777, make sure you have a date every 7 days, make sure you have some sort of plan, right, every 7 weeks to go overnight somewhere, make sure you have some sort of vacation every 7 months. We talk a little bit about that. Go check it out, episode 28, episode 29, next part in the series of relationships. I focus on your relationship with God. This relationship can be an everlasting change in your life and open the door to bettering yourself, your kingdom, your family, and your friends. Your life and your romantic relationships. Does your relationship with God guide your life? Do you live like Jesus once did? Or what God would want you to live your life like? Think about that idea. Do you talk to God? Do you pray? Are you proud of God and proclaim Him? Do you embrace this unconditional love like Jesus did for us and watch your relationships, get to this concept of changing for the better? Do you do all those things? Does this guide your life? When you have a relationship with God, what it does is it leads you to all of the other things in your life being enhanced. And once you open that door, you'll never want to go back. Episode 30, what love languages do you most attract to? Part 4 of this relationships identifies love languages, why they are important, and how you use them to guide yourself to being a better partner, parent, friend. Master the 5 love languages. Actively seek what your partner chooses as their love language. Give endless effort to provide it, and then communicate your own love languages and better relationships, and you'll have better relationships by doing so, right? Think about that. Episode 31, relationships are complex. Especially when men and women think differently, approach each other differently. So this whole episode is about men versus women and how we think. Part of this is nature, part of this is society norms, but in general terms, men are physical creatures and women are emotional ones. Men connect through touch and women through feelings. Men are concrete, use logic and solve problems. Women are emotional and nurture, and how they feel dictates a connection or not. Understanding your partner helps realize when to give, to understand, and how to approach your relationship. Episode 32. We wrap up the 6-part series with this relationship. I provided this acronym to describe all major components of a successful relationship. CIRCLE, CIRCLE. Each letter stands for a vital part of life that should be focused in all bonds with another person. Now, that could be friendship, that could be parenting, that could also be emotional or romantic relationships. So, what does the C stand for? Communication. Listen and speak for understanding, like I talked about in communication. You listen for understanding, you speak for understanding. I, initiate. Without an approach, a beginning, we lose a sense of desire. You must initiate. Your partner must initiate. Respect. Without a respect, empathetic approach, we create resentment. So people that don't give respect, there's a resentment that forms. C, commitment. Never one foot in, one foot out. Full commitment allows for a relationship to be all in, an all in effort. R, I'm sorry, we went through R. L. L is love. My definition of love, again, is I bleed, you bleed. I hurt, you hurt. You hurt, I hurt. We are one. Love radiates between both of us, and our love cannot be penetrated by outside sources. And then there's the E, endless effort again. As I mentioned, the most foundational component of all relationships is in a constant, consistent effort that allows all the other parts of circle to shine. Picture holding your person's hands, forming a circle, and no one can break that bond. Reciprocal. You give, I give, every part of circle. I initiate, you initiate. I communicate, you communicate. I give respect, you give respect. I'm committed, you're committed. I give you love, you give me love. I'm giving endless effort, you're giving endless effort. All of those go together. Obviously, I was out of order there. But the idea is you have to understand that if you can form this circle and everybody or both people in that relationship are forming this circle, this bond, that nothing comes between you and you both are doing your part, you will win at that relationship. Episode 33, we move on to a mini series on our brain's intuition. The greatest strength comes from controlling yourself, your body, your words, your thoughts, and your reaction. This means the opposite of this is the biggest weakness you can have. You cannot control anyone else in life. This behavior is a sign of insecurity and weakness. Control yourself. One of those big things that are very difficult to do, but controlling yourself is the biggest strength you can have in life. That leads me to the next episode, episode 34, where it says the greatest intelligence a person can have is a metacognition intelligence. This is the ability to think about your thinking in the moment, actively observing, understanding, and regulating one's own cognitive processes. Become aware of how you think, evaluate, and control your own mind in real time. Really look into that, metacognitive intelligence. When I started talking about this and thinking about this, it really honed in on me actually understanding, hey, I'm going to do this, and I'm really focused on doing it. It's very difficult to do, but as you do it, you become more intelligent. It's really opened your eyes. Episode 35, another part of this series on intuition of our brain, is delayed gratification versus instant gratification. What balance between the two do you have in your life? Macro thinking and the power of self-control lead to a more delayed gratification approach. Finding a balance between intrinsic and extrinsic values can weigh heavily on what balance your life has between delayed gratification and instant gratification. Sacrificing short-term pleasure for long-term success, such as in health and fitness, maybe food, spending money, can all be related to the benefit of delayed gratification. Acquiring skills and balancing impulses leads to growth and long-term gratification. Macro thinking, long-term goals and plans, saving. Micro thinking, I need gratification now. Remember, there is a balance. We need short-term gratification as well, but long-term can be very beneficial. This episode discusses the benefit of teaching delayed gratification to our children when it comes to behavior, when it comes to things in life. Also gives strategies and applies it to faith, relationships, and life concepts. Episode 36, as we wrap up this series, habit forming is directly related to bettering our lifestyles. Building positive habits are essential to growing every aspect of our life. Building habits allows for discipline, so daily activities become natural without much thought. Habit stacking is a great way to allow for positive changes based on routine, where you add another habit on top of another one, so it ensures to happen together. Method keeps your brain from arguing if it should or shouldn't do something, rather acts on repetition, and the habit becomes automatic with little thought. That's a big part of this intuition of our brain. Habit stacking is a huge part of showing success. Get on board with it. I give the example of this. When I brush my teeth, I pray. That's 2 things done off my checklist, and I got them both done in the same amount of time. Episode 37, Unconditional Love, was an episode that most dog lovers can relate to. A sense of love so deep it doesn't matter the impact or emotions one might have felt before the person, or like my dog Danger, shows love without conditions. Always supporting, always showing up for, always caring for a person without expectation to receive something in return. Some people have unconditional love, but in relationships, that doesn't mean that you can treat someone poorly or walk all over them. It's healthy to have boundaries, and if your person can't respect them, it is okay to love them unconditionally from afar. Tough concept there, but definitely love on people unconditionally, like you would your kids, like you would certain people in your life. Episode 38, sometimes unconditional love can come from your mirror partner, or sometimes called a challenge partner. This is a person that holds up a mirror to you and assists you into looking at your own actions, taking accountability for your own self. You must trust this person with your well being to be at the forefront, and they will want the best for you. Calling you out for your biases, your jaded perspective, your inability to match your words to your actions, pushing for you to take accountability for your mistakes is a mirror partner that truly wants the growth of you as a person, building you up and helping you see yourself. Everyone should have a mirror partner. Everyone should have a friend that's going to do that for them. Everyone should have a person that'll do that for them so that you can grow. You cannot grow if you think you are the smartest, the best. You cannot grow if you don't look at yourself deep inside. You cannot grow if you don't look at the ugly sides of yourself as well. Again, therapy is a big part of this. Go to therapy, support therapy, or find a challenge partner, find this mirror partner, because a lot of people don't have them. And if you have one, you better hold on tight, because that person is so important to you. Episode 39, sometimes parents need that mirror that we're just talking about to see how they are ruining sports for children. Parents often put pressure on their children to perform by living through their children, criticizing coaches and officials, pressuring their kids to do better, to earn scholarships and money, and the need to win. Like, that's the only thing that matters. Sports are intended to build character, to compete, to grow, and get better through a process, and to build life lessons we need as people in this society. Some parents forget this, and they ruin sports by causing lifelong damages to athletes in which they resent and quit the game they love. Awful. I watch it every week. Parents ruin sports. Don't be that parent. The parents that are great parents, just support your kid and love your kid. Go through and support your kid. Cheer them on. Understand they're getting life lessons through playing sports. And then episode 40 is my last one. This is the last episode I just did for this year. Up until this point, this is my last one. But I focus on suppressed trauma that people keep hidden deep down. They compartmentalize, or compartmentalizing is so that it's not brought to the surface. This suppressed trauma from their childhood or relationships or horrific experiences ferments and becomes toxic, causing this inner toxicity to erupt on others that love them, even though they didn't hurt them. This unhealed trauma that results in toxic behavior ruins relationships and can cause trauma to their loved ones. Please, you must work on your unhealed problems. I know it's tough. I'm doing it. Some people have them. Some people go through trauma. I told you, I went through trauma. My brother passed away when I was 12 years old. These are trauma things that people have experienced, and that might not be as traumatic as some people have gone through. Some people have gone through some horrific things. Some people have gone through horrible marriages. Some people have gone through horrible upbringing where their parents are horrible. All of these things need to be dealt with. You cannot suppress them. You cannot hide them. You cannot push them down. They are going to blow up at the wrong times for you, and they're going to ruin part of your life. Fix them and work on them. And remember, you can always change. Every single day of your life, you have the ability to step into a different version of who you are. You have the ability to change your core values. You have the ability to look at yourself in the mirror and fix and grow. You have the ability to become a better person and build your kingdom around you. Build your kingdom for yourself and build your kingdom around you. This is what this podcast is about. This is a huge reflection of 40 episodes that I had for the last year that I'm proud of myself for. I really hope some people got something out of this. I really hope that you look into these and you dive into some of those episodes. If you haven't, go back and read them, follow them, like them, go through them. Support me, I'm supporting you. Go through and look at yourself. If you need life coaching, you need some sort of support, fitness training, I am your person. Come talk to me. I promise you, I am as passionate as I am on this. I will always help you. So, to wrap this all up, understand one thing. I always practice what I preach here. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes too. There's things that I probably have said that I have to go back and fix and change and do things. But I know that for the majority of it all, I am bettering myself as a person in my life, and I'm searching. And sometimes I don't do the greatest things in life, and sometimes I do some really helpful things. But I know my purpose is to give my word out there and help those around me and really build their kingdom, because I'm building mine. And that goes for anyone that's watching this or listening to this, I'm sorry, or anyone that has a conversation with me or is part of my life. I really hope that you build yours. I really wish you well. I really am somebody that is supportive, and I never want to bring somebody down. So keep building yours. Keep looking at these key aspects and focusing on, and then go through and love those people around you. I'm going to sign off. I'm going to say Happy Easter. Thank you, Jesus, for the ultimate sacrifice, for us, for loving us unconditionally. Thank you for dying on that cross and rising again, and then hopefully coming again to bring us to that kingdom of heaven. I am a believer. I love God. I will always support God. I really hope that you guys are out there having the same sense and celebrating Easter with your families. Just remember what it's all about, not just the Easter Bunny. Signing off.